Hello, everyone. My name is Oheneba Ama-Intiose, business journalist and Knight Budget Fellow at Columbia University's Graduate School of Journalism. On behalf of the AFPC-USA, I'd like to welcome you all to this educational program on the importance of foreign correspondents learning to understand data. Very, very important topic. And before I introduce our guests, please note that this event is supported by S&P Global, and the AFPC-USA is solely responsible for the content and development of this program. Would also like to share that S&P Global offers complimentary access to selected data platforms through their Press Pass program. These include S&P Capital IQ and Visible Alpha. We'll be sharing more information on how you can request access in the supplementary materials to be provided after the session. Now to our esteemed guest, we are thrilled to have here with us two experts participating in today's discussion. We have Jenny Paurys, Senior Vice President at S&P Global Market Intelligence, where she serves as both the Head of Global Intelligence and Analytics Business and Head of Supply Chain Strategy for the Market Intelligence Division. Jenny, thank you so much for joining us today. We also have with us Warren Breakstone, who leads the Capital IQ Solutions business for S&P Global Market Intelligence. Warren oversees the Capital IQ platforms, S&P Global Marketplace, and associated analytical data visualization and content solutions. So yes, Warren and Jenny, thank you both so much for joining us today. We look forward to your insights and contributions.
It's good to be here.
We'll begin by giving you both the floor to share a few remarks, and we'll follow this up with a Q&A session where we'll also invite questions from the audience. So Warren, please take it away.
Sure. I thought I'd use my time a little bit differently. And instead of bringing you through a PowerPoint presentation, I thought maybe a live interactive demo might be a little bit more interesting for this audience. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to share my screen, bring you into Capital IQ Pro. Now, everything I'm going to show you is available to you as a journalist. So, at the end of this meeting, there'll be information as to how you can get access for those of you who don't currently have access. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Great. Okay. Are you able to see it?
Yes, we can.
Coming up, great. Okay, terrific. So I thought maybe what I'll do is I'll take you through a little bit of a use case as to how some of our clients use the platform in their everyday work. And then at the very tail end, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pivot a little bit. I'm going to show you some features and functionality that I think actually would be very interesting to this audience as well. So what I'm showing you now is Capital IQ Pro. It's a platform that has 350,000 users across the institutional buy side, sell side for big banks, and corporate users. While the different users use the platform, all rely on the same data and the same platform, they all seem to use it very differently to satisfy their own particular use cases or answer their particular questions or solve their various problems. So I'm going to share with you how a typical, let's say, research analyst on the buy side might be using the platform. So what we're starting off with is what's called our dashboard. And our dashboard typically will stay up and operational the full day. So a client will have this running typically in the platform or in a separate monitor. And just what they're trying to do is just monitor what's happening in the market. And typically, like I do here, I've got a list of companies that are of interest to me. This is my watch list. Sometimes it's referred to as my portfolio, but in this case, this is my watch list. And these are various companies that that I'm keeping sort of a watchful eye on. Now, the market has already closed here in the U.S., or else you'd see a lot of blinking lights indicating changes in price. Now, one thing I would typically be doing throughout the day is watching the stock movement. I'd also be looking at any sort of news that's coming through. and I'll also have established various alerts to sort of trigger me to say, hey, something's going on. I'll also spend a bit of time reading news, which is something I'm sure you could all appreciate. Our clients today increasingly need context for the data that we're offering them, and news and research is a big part of it. So one of the companies that I've been following is Pepsi. So incidentally, Pepsi had their earnings release yesterday. So what I would probably do is I would go in and take a look at Pepsi. I'll go into the company profile, and what I'll probably end up doing is checking out. First, I would go to let's say the estimates, and I'd be quite interested in seeing how do the earnings that they released relate to the expectations or the consensus that was established. Did they achieve the expectation? Did they exceed it? Did they come in short? And what this surprise chart is a great summary of that. So what happened yesterday when Pepsi released their earnings, they released earnings that were positive to the consensus. Typically, when you beat your consensus, the stock moves in a favorable way. So this would be the first thing I would probably look at as someone who's interested in Pepsi. And then I might probably go and take a look at the actual transcript itself. I'd like to perhaps, since I missed the call live, I might want to go in and read the actual earnings call transcript or listen to it. And so the platform provides you that opportunity to do that as well. So here I have the transcript, literally the entire call that the CEO and the CFO and their head of investor relations had with the investor and analyst community. But you know what? I'm pressed on time like you all are. Maybe what I'll do first is I'll take a look at the sentiment of the call. Was this a good call, a positive call, negative? How did it relate to the previous calls that this company has had? How about overall industry and their peer group? So I just clicked on the sentiment scores, and here's a application of AI. Specifically, this is a machine learning model that we created that takes a look at the sentiment of the call. Was it positive? Was it negative? And I can talk to you a little bit about how we do that if that's of interest to you. But what this chart shows us is that the call, while positive, was sort of less positive than it has been in the last few quarters and is roughly on par with the rest of the industry. So there's an interesting trend. I might look at the numeric transparency. Numeric transparency is typically if you are an executive sharing information about your company, if you're using more numbers to define your performance, that tends to be a positive metric, right? Anyone who's a parent and has a high school student as a child and brings home their report card, if they're giving you the facts, that tends to be a better sign. The same thing with earnings call. And then of course, language complexity. Are the sentences short? Are the words simple? Or are they using big words or big combinations of words that's making it kind of a more complex story? That's an indication of something gone bad. So the language complexity here is actually, this last call was higher complexity than the previous calls, but still below the range of the overall industry. That'd be one thing I would look at. So that's an interesting application of AI. Then I would make maybe a decision. Do I want to go in and spend the time to read the call? Or maybe here's another application of Gen AI where we've gotten the system to summarize the call itself. So now you can make a decision. Do I want to read this 20-page transcript of the call, or just take a look at the highlights that's generated using Gen AI? And I can look at that by sentiment. I can also look at it by topic. I can also jump in and take a look at the source. So I can go from one of the summary comments and click, and it'll bring me to the source of that theme or that comment. Very, very important. On the buy side, the sell side, and our corporate clients, even though Gen AI is really interesting and exciting, the need to be able to click through to the source to understand where the information is coming from is incredibly important. Okay, and people talk about the concept of hallucinations. So the ability to show the underlying data that is being used by the large language model is quite critical, and we've been able to build that into the platform as well. So what I've done so far is I've gone and I've monitored the companies. I've taken a look at the earnings of the company of Pepsi. I've looked at now the earnings call transcript. I've already understood the sentiment of the call. Was it positive? Was it negative? How did it relate to previous calls and the industry? And I've actually been able to use some of the summarization technology. So those are a number of different things that our clients might use. Now, my colleague Jenny runs a great business for us. Our economic and country risk or our macroeconomic data is a big part of that business. Let me just go to here's some of that data. So very often, you as a user may want to understand something bigger than the individual company. Sometimes it's the sector, the industry, could also be the country itself. So here's what I brought up was our economic and demographic data, in this case for France. And anything in the shade of blue is actually forecast data. So what are the economists saying the future is going to look like? And then, of course, the other data is what has happened in the past. And this is incredibly powerful. So, we've got 50 some odd indicators here that will help you assess the health and vibrancy and future of various companies. But we also have been able to go back in time. So I've now brought up roughly 50 years of data, and it just came up in a split second. So the ability to render this data quickly and comprehensively is very, very important. So what we've been doing a lot of, and our clients are very interested in this, is be able to provide context for the individual companies and company data that we're able to offer. Some of that's at the industry level, sector level, country level, understanding the risk, understanding the news, the research associated with it. It's all a big part of our overall proposition. Now, if you bear with me, I'm going to go show you something a little bit different that I think you'll find interesting. And we just released this literally 2 weeks ago. But let's do this one. This is our labs environment. So we work really closely with our customers, and we try to bring them into our development process as soon as we can. So one of the ways we've done that is we've as we're innovating, as we're building new capabilities, we're offering it out to the clients to be able to use it, to evaluate it, to steer us in different directions, to offer us feedback before we're totally code complete. And we've got a suite of really interesting capabilities that we currently have out with clients. And once we fully bake it, then we bring it into the core application. So here's something called Transcript Trending Topics. So we have hundreds and thousands of earnings call transcripts going back 14, 15 years. So it's a rich repository of great insight. And you're able to, using this platform, go through all of that, the rich trove of content and seek insights pretty quickly. So let's take a look at an index. We'll look at the S&P 500, obviously. We can choose different terms that might be of interest. So let's choose Trump. Let's choose Harris. Let's choose Biden. 3 terms. And now let's choose a period of time. Let's just do the last 2 years. And now what the system is doing is it's going across all of the transcripts for all of the S&P 500 businesses for the last 2 years. And it's going to return to us an indication of what are the trend lines for these terms. So in other words, how often are they how often have they been mentioned relative to each other and over time. Okay, so what this is showing us is that across these companies, the S&P 500, the name Trump has been coming up in the earnings calls, okay, quite a lot in the last quarter relative to Harris or Biden. That's kind of interesting. So maybe companies are starting talking about Trump. Maybe we're worried about something, or it's a bigger set of concerns, or for whatever other reason. You can change these terms. Let's do Gen AI as a term. We'll take a look at ESG, climate. Let's run the same analysis and see what comes back. And you can start to see trend lines of terms that are of interest across the S&P 500. So this is kind of interesting. So this gold line is ESG. So ESG has actually been in decline. It's not coming up as much as it used to. Okay, now in the US, we know that term ESG is sort of getting a little polarizing as we're in the peak political season. Okay, it's starting to be replaced by other terms. Climate is the blue line. So you see climate is faring a bit better than that. And then you also see Gen AI, which is this purple line, which was quite the rave, still very relevant. But you can start to see these trend lines of these various topics. You could put in a different term. Maybe we'll go AI instead of Gen AI. See how that's changed. Okay, so here's AI is all the rave, right? So these are good insights for folks to understand what's of interest in the investment community, what's of interest in corporations. So anyway, that's an interesting new novel technology that we've just released. But with that, why don't I pause? I'll turn over to Jenny, and then if there's time afterwards, we'll come back. We'll answer some questions, and I could show you more if you have interest. Jenny?
Yes, thanks so much. Before Jenny comes in, Warren, I'm curious to know how soon are the transcripts available after the earnings call?
Well, transcripts are available in real time. They can actually be streamed as the folks are speaking. It tends to be delayed by a few seconds. Then, and when the call is complete, we publish the total call transcript, but it's referred to as sort of still in draft form. We then run it through the system again to clean it up and to make sure we've got everything accurate, and then we publish the final one. But and then the transcripts are available through the platform, like what I was able to show you. They can also be turned into machine readable. So we have clients now that are consuming the transcripts in bulk, and they're running it through their own models to look for their own particular insights as well. So that's another mechanism.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And I asked that as a journalist who has in the past had to wait several hours once, you're waiting for the earnings call and you're waiting for that transcript and the notes. So I just feel like this is a really great tool for journalists like myself. So yeah, thank you. Jenny, over to you.
Well, I couldn't agree more, Aneba, about how helpful this tool is. And just before I kind of dive into my current role, I, for many, many years, was responsible for creating the news content that Warren referred to on the platform. And I was one of those journalists 15 plus years ago, wading through transcripts, trying to do a control find once that transcript finally came through, needing to do that extremely manually. Whenever I see a demo like this from Warren, I just think about how helpful that is for being able to collect and collate information as a journalist that allows you to have that baseline from which you can then talk to sources, talk to experts, but it really helps you start to really frame out your questions, right? So I think it's wonderful.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Well, let's just pivot a little bit, and I'll walk you through a bit of what I lead today, which is global intelligence and analytics, and that's a really exciting part of our business. Warren showed you a little bit of that content on Cap IQ Pro, and he's absolutely right. We've got forecasts, historic data, and country intelligence data for every country in the world. So there's a big machine behind all of that macro data, and that's what I'd like to share with you now. So I am going to use some slides to do this, but hopefully you will see why in just a moment. And let's see, here we go. This. All right. So global intelligence and analytics is where you will find our economics, country risk and intelligence, maritime, trade, and supply chain data and products and solutions. We've brought all of those things together at S&P Global because the kinds of questions that our clients are trying to answer require many different macro level inputs at the same time. And we really started to see this through the invasion of Ukraine a couple of years ago. We were receiving questions from clients that had typically been, clients of our economics tools that also needed to understand about trade impacts. And we had folks looking into risk profiles for countries, but also needed to understand about port security. There were a lot of different elements that we had here, and we've woven them together so that we can really offer that. And these are experts and expertise that can help guide journalists as well. So if you want to think about everything I just said and where that sits, you can think about that as data and insights, right? We've got hundreds of experts in this business that pull together events data, reports, forecasts. We have our own economic forecasting model, all of those outputs all the time. It is an expert-driven business. And in the world of Gen AI, that is very important because you need to have strong expert-led content to be able to then extract through Gen AI really actionable and non-hallucinogenic content from the machines. If we get into this just a little bit more, let me try to move this. There we go. You can see that you can think about this in terms of the full data estate, but that's really macroeconomics. So like I said, every country in the world we forecast on a monthly, bi-monthly, or quarterly basis. The large economies are forecast every single month, and we work from there. We also provide risk intelligence for every country in the world, including risk scores that look across the political, economic, legal, operational, tax, and security landscape. And that is derived through our analysts working closely with many experts in region and country, and ensuring that we provide that kind of objective view into how to think about risk and opportunity in any given country. We offer maritime intelligence. So if you think about the Red Sea crisis earlier this year, we're able to help make sense of where ships are in the world, how shipping lanes are affecting the spend of shipping companies. We're also able to talk about how ports perform, which is a really important element. When you think about the supply chain troubles we all went through back in the pandemic, those weren't there simply because of the pandemic. Those came about due to labor restrictions and issues, right? Technology, the need for more digitization, all of those elements, which we can tend to think about as kind of over here, those are actually underpinning a lot of what's happening in the economy today. So that's something that we're able to bring to bear that is really useful in understanding the bigger picture and how stresses on things like supply chain ultimately play out on balance sheets for the companies, like the tear sheets that Warren just showed you as well. We provide industry insights where we look across 105 different industries and provide apples to apples comparisons of some fundamental performance items across those industries. That's really helpful so that you're not just looking at an industry and that industry's own definition of its own performance and fundamentals, but thinking about how that aligns with other industries. It can be part of investment, it can be a part of understanding economics more broadly. Trade analytics, trade forecasting, and we also forecast commodity prices. This is a strength of S&P Global, is being able to have a finger on the pulse, not just of intraday pricing, but also to be able to look forward and understand what is likely to happen in the price of specific commodities. And I know that there were many times in my reporting career where I would have thought that type of information is outside of my beat. But what we're discovering increasingly, and I'm guessing you all are too, is that macro level data and events are part of covering a sector, a company, an industry. All of these things are intrinsically tied. So that's a big piece of what we can bring to the table. But if you want to break that down, if you want to remember anything from today, we offer economic indicators and forecasts. We offer global risk and maritime, global trade and supply chain, and Journal of Commerce. Let's talk about the Journal of Commerce for a minute. It is almost 200-year-old company that we have as part of our fabric here. It was launched long ago and has been in publication ever since. It will celebrate its 200th anniversary in 2027. And the Journal of Commerce is a team of expert journalists in logistics and trade flows. So, for example, when we've had the longshoremen strike here on the East Coast recently, the Journal of Commerce are experts in that area and are covering that and talking about it. And I think that's a really important thing to underpin everything we've talked about today, whether you're thinking about things like the PMI, which you've probably heard about in media or covered yourself, right? The Purchasing Manager Index, which helps us look forward at what is likely to happen with economic activity. Or you're looking at current events like a strike across ports all over the United States and what that's likely to mean for a company or a sector. All of these are driven by experts that help create them. And it's quite a population of those experts. We have in-region experts everywhere across the world that speak over 20 languages. They come with that deep industry, sector, and geographic expertise, and they work closely with our clients and customers. But they're also available to help answer questions from journalists about understanding the bigger picture of what we're trying to navigate, how something at what seems like a macro level is likely playing out with specific companies and sectors as well. And for me, when I was a journalist, that is something that I really valued. When I had sources of information that their job was not to provide advice, not to provide their perspective. They're not part of an industry representative. All of those viewpoints are very valuable. But I think as journalists, we also understand that we've got to bring in that objective foundation to our reporting that really helps then underpin how the reader, how our audience should understand all of those different perspectives, right? It's not, there was a time where journalism strayed a bit into, here are 3 different perspectives, you figure it out. And I think we're realizing as journalists over time, we've really got to underpin that with as much other objective data as possible so that we're not asking our audiences to choose between 2 or 3 viewpoints. We're giving them a much more robust and really textured understanding of a topic, an issue, whatever beat that we're covering. So I'm very proud to be part of this team. It's wonderful to work alongside so many talented experts. And I just wanted to give you a kind of a peek at the way we think about things. And we do publish reports that help us look forward in the year. So this is a snapshot of what we put forward for 2024. The main themes that we would be focused on in our own analysis, and many of them have played out pretty strongly throughout the year, right? Economic fault lines. We've obviously, all eyes have been on when the U.S. Federal Reserve would return to a different type of interest rate environment, which they've now done. The geopolitical reordering, that has been massive, right? Understanding that there are massive shifts happening back and forth right now in terms of that kind of geopolitical power. And a lot of that comes from things at the macro level. It comes from sources of things that seem as far away sometimes as critical minerals. But honestly, that is at the center of a lot of policy that is also impacting companies, financials, everything across the board. Obviously, supply chain resilience is another area that we've watched carefully this year. Logistics, and then there's also strategic competition as an area that we're really watching as experts in the larger macro space. We put out reports like this throughout the year. And they can certainly, are available for journalists as well to help guide your own thinking about how to continue to monitor some of these big themes and how they touch industries throughout the year. I'll stop there and happy to take any questions.
Yes, thank you so much, Jenny. Thank you for those great insights. I mean, combined with what Warren shared, I feel like it really shows how simplifying, AI, how these new innovative technologies are really improving data reporting and really enhancing the storytelling. So I think that's a really great point. You mentioned how macroeconomic data and events are should be part of covering an industry. And once again, couldn't agree more. I think it's very important. I'm curious to know what strategies, as a journalist yourself and with your background, can correspondents use to effectively incorporate this information in their day-to-day reporting?
My approach here is to think about what are all my, so a journalist, we're really good at asking questions, right?
Yes.
What is everything that I am curious about for this topic I need to cover, right? So let's say you have been assigned a story. Learning about that topic should always include, as much big picture and small picture as you can manage in the time that you have to work on that story, right? Because you need to help your reader get quickly contextualized into why the thing that you're putting out in the world is worth reading. I mean, we do journalism to engage the audience, right? So that is the value of it, right? And trying to make sure from the very beginning you're thinking expansively about not just this thing I've been asked to think about, but are there some layers outside of that I need to understand a bit better in order to be effective in explaining this for my audience and really arming them with a way to think through this particular event, this particular type of analysis. So I think that's really important from a macro perspective. And then I really can't underscore enough the value of having data and data sources that help you as a journalist feel empowered in learning the thing you need to report on. Sources are wonderful. Experts are terrific. We need them. And those voices are what bring a story to life. But you don't have to go in cold on these kinds of areas with those sources, with those experts, or feel like you're going in only kind of narrowly to what you needed to ask them about and researching enough to ask them about that. And really trying to have a place where you're hooked in, like on Cap IQ Pro, and able to monitor those bigger trends just in real time all the time, helps you start to think a little bit more expansively and then helps you find that data that creates that more objective foundation for you to stand on and then report out to your audience.
Great insight. Thank you so much. I want to bring Warren here. You talked about these Gen AI powered transcripts, summarizations, over 19 million fixed income securities have also been added. But both of these are major enhancement to the Cap IQ Pro platform. Warren, my question is, how do you see these updates transforming the user experience?
Well, our clients are increasingly looking to be able to tell the overall story, be able to do it quicker. Speed is of essence.
Mm-hmm.
We're making not only big investments in adding data, but also how it's presented in visual ways, with new technologies, new capabilities to really bring out the essence of it. Philosophically, when you think about decision making, the best decisions are not made with just discrete data. It's made as different data sets sort of converge or brought together. And then clients are able to utilize different tools as well as their experience and expertise to ultimately, make the right types of decisions, whether it be a capital allocation decision or an investment decision, or a business decision around markets or competitive landscapes. But it's how the data all comes together. So, we follow our customers. So where our customers are looking to make types of decisions, we ask ourselves, what different types of data can be brought together and brought to bear with what types of tools and visualization, and now increasingly analytics to help them on that journey. So and the answer is it differs by client segment. When you're serving the buy side, the sell side, corporates, academics, insurance firms, PE, et cetera, they're all going to have their own distinct set of needs. So we try to figure out what combinations of data and other assets can be brought to bear. Now,
sorry, please go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask about the sentiment, also being able to sort of trace that. I thought was also very fascinating based on the different feedback. If you could delve a bit more into that, how clients are using that, what is the feedback you're getting?
Well, with everything, whether it be our financial data, okay, where we pioneered what's called click through to source. So we'll present to you the financials of a company. Could do it over a 50-year period of time, but the ability to click in any individual data item and go down into both the methodology, but then ultimately to the source document is really important, because that gives you the confidence that the data that you're using is accurate, is consistent, you understand the context in which it was collected, et cetera. That same principle has carried into Gen AI. Okay, so now Gen AI, you can write a prompt, ask a question, and then you get an answer. But the same principle and the same concern around confidence in the data you're using carries through. So the ability to go from a large language model, ask the question, get the answer, and then drill down to see where did that answer come from? What is the underlying data? That's a core critical principle to how we're building our solutions for the next stage in this Gen AI journey.
Thank you. Jenny, I want to bring you in here. You mentioned lots of forward-looking analysis you're doing. And once again, I'm curious, with the Fed's pivot towards rate cuts, what are your economists foreseeing in terms of the shift, global financial markets and economic growth in the coming year? I know it's end of the year, and a lot of companies are already looking ahead. What are your thoughts on that, and what are you seeing? What does the data show?
Yes, I connected with our chief economist earlier today to make sure I presented this accurately. But look, anybody who watches the financial markets and economics more broadly, and that's most of us, right, one way or another, has known that the Fed's movement on interest rates was going to be a pivotal time, right? And we've been waiting for that really since the other move to try to deal with the inflationary pressures that we saw after the pandemic. So that the U.S. is a first mover in this typically, and we're going to continue to see that monetary policy easing elsewhere because the fears of currency depreciation are receding a little bit now. People are feeling a little bit more confident in reaching some form of stability. We do expect a series of cuts forecast, that will ultimately return U.S. policy rates to an estimated neutral level by mid-2026. But we do not foresee a return to the pre-pandemic ecosystem for interest rates. We just don't see that that's possible because the pandemic is not the only thing that has put pressures here. We've got, there's geopolitical risks. There's also massive economic shifts underway when you think about labor availability and cost, and supply, reshoring trends, which, and that's when a company decides to bring its operations closer to where it's domiciled, right? So instead of offshoring, which we've heard about for years, this is the idea of where do I need to put my sourcing or production facilities so that they are closer to me and I don't have as many dependencies on so many steps in the global supply chain. Tariffs is another area that we continue to feel will continue to push the economic cycle. So again, this is a positive in a lot of ways in that this is something that the world economy was holding bated breath for. We now have a signal that we're starting that process, but we have to understand that the world's economy fundamentally changed in the last several years, and in a way that was just very visible to all of us. Economy's always changing, but very visible. And that's how we should kind of start to think about the track we're on now, which is not a loop back, but a different path forward.
Great, thank you so much. Warren, back to AI, and technologies and how they are really helping especially in reporting. How do you plan to, how can journalists plan to further leverage these new technologies, in enhancing the analysis, decision-making, for whether it's the client's perspective or the user perspective? There's a lot of data being generated here, a lot of access to data. How do you make sure that you're using the right one?
Yeah, well, that's a big question. I mean, I think that what we talk to our clients about is the best thing to do is just to start to use it and start getting comfortable with Gen AI. It doesn't replace, by the way, or at least not yet, anything that our clients are doing, but it does sort of at times enhance it, at times maybe create some new efficiencies. Most of all, where we're seeing the biggest benefit of Gen AI within our products and services is it's helping clients find new insights quicker, and that's a big part. When you have as much data as we offer our clients, that's a great thing, right? Because at the end of the day, having the data is really foundational. But it's also incredibly overwhelming. How do you find the right data for your particular need, your question, what have you? So we've invested in a number of different elements. One, invested very heavily in visualization to make the data that we have really pop, so that you can look at data, whether through compelling charting or other sorts of visualization, and find trends and anomalies and insights that you can then drill down further. And that drill down, you can use traditional tools, you can use Gen AI, et cetera. The second area is really around analytics and just making the platform itself smarter, so that your search capabilities, you can look and find what you're looking for quicker. Time is of the essence. That you're able to go, and now we've got a huge corpus of text-based information, okay, which is in our opinion a great new sort of opportunity area for clients to be able to gain new insights. But reading a 70-page filing is super boring. Frankly, the good news is that Gen AI and other related technologies, they don't get bored. So the ability to now do, and I showed you a small sample of it when I showed you the summarization, Okay, so he gave you an alternative. Should I spend my time and read this transcript? Okay, well, let's first look at the sentiment. Is there something different about the sentiment? Maybe that's an indication of this is the one I should spend my time on. I've decided I have some time. Let me read the summarization first, right? Also Gen AI. So now I've invested less time to read the summarization to see, is it now worth dedicating the rest of the appropriate time to really read the whole thing? So it's those types of things that we've invested in that clients are benefiting from. If you have another minute, I can show you as Jenny was talking. Do we have a minute?
Yes, please go ahead.
All
I mean,
right.
I couldn't, I mean, as you pulled that up, that time factor is so important. I mean, instead of waiting hours, having that immediately available, as I was saying earlier, it's a really valuable resource.
Oh, absolutely. So like Jenny was talking about PMI and really thinking about the future. Here's our purchasing managers index, which talks about economies and are they expected to contract? Are they expected to grow? Looking at both manufacturing and then separately looking at services and the ability to represent that, visually. So you can now see very quickly below the white line is contraction, above the white line is growth. So very quickly, the picture is worth 1,000 words, and this is a very sophisticated content set, PMI. Another thing, very visual. This is activism campaigns. So there are various campaigns against companies by different activists. Who are the activists? What are the companies? Have the last campaigns been successful? How many of them? What percentage? Who's advising? What are the tactics being used? What are the objectives? And the ability to continue to drill down to get new insight. Ultimately, you get the specifics, and then you can go and drill down further into the underlying source document. So that ability to keep drilling down is pretty important. New capabilities, like this is our new chart builder. So what I showed you, Pepsi before. So I can look at Pepsi. I can look at Pepsi price. I can maybe look at it over time, the ability to visualize things quickly, to annotate it. Pepsi stock price, right? So all of this now being done very, very quickly so that you can save time, find various, insights. You can take a look at when are their earnings calls been, right? We can move content over. It just popped in the bottom. We can look at other events. So this now tells a story. So you're not just looking at a company, you're looking at the activities that happen over a period of time. And that becomes increasingly helpful. So those are some various examples. News, we talked about news. Context, Jenny talked about research and all the economists that we have. So we carry news not only from Dow Jones and now Nikkei, but our own insights. Clients are increasingly interested. What do you think about this? So we have a group of 250 different editorial or consultant or research analysts who follow various topics or themes or sectors, and they also write about what they're seeing and offer commentary and insights. That's becoming increasingly important as clients are overwhelmed with data. So they want to know what the context is. They want to see it visually. They want to use new technologies so that they can use better use of the allocation of their time. All about time to insight or time to decision is increasingly important. So thanks for letting me share some of that.
Yes, thank you so much, Warren. I mean, very great insights there. Like I said, I'm sure any journalist on the call will appreciate these new technologies and how they...
And they can all have it. So all you have to do is tell us you want it. It's all yours. And we'll throw in some training hours as well so that you can start to incorporate some of this into your own processes. We're absolutely delighted to do it.
Awesome. That's just great. We have about 15 minutes. Want to open it up to questions. If we have questions from the audience. And there's one here, which I'll read out. And then Jenny can take this one. As the media landscape continues to evolve, what trends do you foresee in how journalists will use data in their reporting over the next few years?
Well, with the caveat that I am very much a business journalist at heart, I think data is one of the greatest tools any journalist has at their disposal. Now, I used to always coach and or browbeat a little bit folks to, get numbers into the lead, get it into the headline, get it into the deck. Help underpin what you're trying to say with data, because the human brain is drawn to numbers, is drawn to data. And in terms of the media landscape, I think it's brass tacks. It has been for a long time, but I think it is completely part of the fabric of any type of journalism today. The key is the amount of data you have to go through to understand what is accurate and what you can trust. And that is one reason I'm really proud to have worked here for so long, and to almost 20 years in this world, because places like S&P Global stake our name on accuracy. And as a journalist, it's finding those resources that you can count on as helping you develop that foundation to all of the different kinds of writing and reporting that you want and need to do. So I think it's understanding that everything is better with some data in it that helps quantify, as well as you're providing that qualitative piece as a journalist. That data helps with the quantification of that, the evidence of it. But then ensuring that you have sources of that data, just like any other source in journalism, that you can trust, that can be there as that backbone, and that you can interrogate. I mean, Warren was showing how you can go straight to the source of a number. I remember when we rolled that out, it was game changing. So, next time any of you use it, just know there is a person of me 10 years ago who would have loved to have had that, right? Because it helps you you're not just looking at a platform and getting a number. You can go all the way to the source of that number and see it for yourself. That is, I think, for journalists, an incredibly powerful connectivity of objective input. And I think that is going to be increasingly demanded of journalism. Don't just tell me what two different groups think of something. Help me understand how to create my own conclusions here. Give me the tools to do it. And you are helping with that process as a journalist. You are informing, right?
Absolutely.
That's how I see it.
No, absolutely. And to reemphasize that trust and accuracy point, I think is just so important, especially we all know that AI has its limitations, and being able to trust, the data it's generating is also very important. I know something that journalists will appreciate, knowing that, a lot of care is put into that.
Yep.
Awesome. I have another question here, and maybe Warren can take this one. It says, looking ahead, what innovative data sources do you believe will have the biggest impact on the S&P Global Market Intelligence platform and its users?
Okay, I might answer that a little bit differently than the way it was phrased, because
Sure.
I think that there's always going to be a new data set that's going to be super interesting. But going back to the thesis is that the best decisions are made when discrete sets of data come together, okay? And so the coming together becomes increasingly interesting. So Jenny talked a bit about our supply chain data, right? So now you're able to look at a company and understand the suppliers and the value of that relationship, right? Well, that's very interesting. If you put on your risk hat, you may want to understand maybe the layering in ESG scores that look at physical risk. So you look at the physical risk of the factories and the distribution of the suppliers. Then you overlay various climate scenarios, right? So look at what's going on in Florida today. So should we care about Florida? I don't know if I looked at Pepsi as the example. What type of distribution do they have in critical suppliers that are in the path of the hurricane? That's really starts to become very, very important and interesting and critical at times. So it's a combination of data, supply chain data combined with ESG data to understand physical risk in various climate scenarios. Perfect example. Now that's 2 or 3 existing data sets that we have, but what makes it new and interesting and compelling is that it's brought together in a logical way, combined with tools, combined with the visualization, now combined with Gen AI to bring it all together to tell the right story, and so that the end user is able to make the right types of decisions. So there'll always be the next data set that's interesting and exciting, but more importantly is how does it integrate with other data that clients are already using in their workflow.
Thank you. Another one says, how do you see the role of clients' feedback shaping the development of new data insights and features in the future? I guess you've touched on that. Do you want to expand that more?
Yeah, well, I touched on it. I showed you the interesting,
yes.
You type in terms and you're able to go through all of the S&P 500 in that example, all of the transcripts. That was entirely from customers. So what we did is we prototyped it. We went back out to clients and we said, what do you think? And they said, that was really good, but could you tweak this? And then we tweaked it and we iterated. We went back to clients and they said, okay, that's much better. Let's start using it. And then we put it up on in CIQ Pro in our labs section, which is a part of the platform which allows clients to see some of the newer innovations. And then they start playing with it, banging away at it, using it. And then when we feel it's right, we bring it into the core platform. And so the ability to co-develop with your clients is really essential. And it's important because when we do something, anyone does anything, we're making big bets, big investments. So we want to make sure that those investments are likely to succeed, to hit. And the more we're able to do this with and develop for our users, with our users, I think that sort of sets you up for a little bit better likelihood of success.
Great point there, Warren. Thank you. Have one last one, and Jenny can probably take this. How can news organizations better equip journalists with the tools and training needed to effectively leverage data in their storytelling?
So we've talked quite a bit about AI here, but engaging with the AI tools that can improve your own workflow as a journalist, obviously in accordance with the rules of your executive editor and newsroom. But that is key, right? So we've shown tools today that provide those kinds of, where we've overlaid AI to really help get that sentiment analysis, that get transcripts out the door faster. There's lots of things that companies like us do for our clients, that journalists are benefiting from. I think journalists should advocate for use of AI tools in their own workflows. So think about the things that take your time, but do not necessarily improve your understanding of what it is you're reporting on and how you could be using that time better, and really use that as your inspiration to try out new technologies as they become available, to advocate for that in your newsroom. Everything from just thinking about event monitoring, right? I mean, we do that in our own business for our clients, and to help our experts. There's no reason journalists can't be advocating and using tools like that for their own workflows. So, engaging with AI tools that are made available to you, and or helping identify those that would make you a stronger journalist, a more productive journalist, That's key. And that is what I would really encourage journalists to do. I think that's going to come very naturally to some people, not as naturally to others. That's okay. We don't all have to, you know, be natives in all of this. It wasn't even here, you know, a few years ago.
Yeah.
But really don't shy away from that. Think outside the box and train your brain to think that way.
Would you say that is what the audience should take away from today's discussion?
I think take away from today's discussion that finding trusted data partners is one of the most important elements of what you can do for your work as a journalist. And everything else is benefits from that, right? So whether that's how you then work on your internal processes so you have more time to interrogate data, whether that's, you know, making you feel more informed to ask tougher questions of your sources and experts that you speak to for your stories. You find those pillars of trusted data sources, lean into them, and grow out from that. That would be the thing I would encourage everyone to take away today.
Awesome. And Warren, I know we all have access to this great resource. Apart from that, anything you'd like the audience to take away from today?
No, I think we covered it. I'd just say use the platform. The more there's a lot to discover, and you can really I think use it to your benefit. We're happy to support you with training and tools and all those sorts of guides and the like. And help you get the most out of it. But we really appreciate the time today. Thank you for what you do. It's important, especially now. And it was a pleasure speaking on behalf of Jenny. Jenny and I both, I'm sure, very much enjoyed the session. I hope it was helpful and interesting.
Oh, absolutely. It really was. And like I said, from a journalist perspective, looking at all this game-changing technology and just the time that can be saved and how storytelling can be enhanced, I think it's just great to get this information out there. So I'd like to thank you again. Thank the S&P Global for supporting this program. Jenny and Warren, thank you so much for your insights. I mean, learning how data is used for reporting and how Capital IQ users are leveraging this robust data. I mean, there's just so much of it. Just how foreign correspondents can really tap into this these insights, whether from the economic, country risk, supply chain intelligence, as Jenny mentioned. There's just so much in terms of resources available. So looking forward to really getting our hands into that and using it. I'm sure that everyone will appreciate that. So thank you once again. I hope you enjoy the program and look forward to seeing you all next time. Thank you.
Thank you.